got a couple thoughts about Diablo 4. Overall, it's, well, I'd say this game has got a couple of problems. It actually has more than a few problems. If you want my recommendation on whether or not you should be buying this game, I'd say it's pretty much a hard no. Maybe it might be worth it to get it on sale. Maybe $30, $40. $20 would be great, but at $70 or even $100 for the free season 1 battle pass, I wouldn't say it worth it. So let's just get it out of the way right now. I was not that impressed with this game. I think this game has quite a few issues. Now that I've hit 100, this is my build. I'm playing a lightning build. Let's see here. My skill tree. Right? So I've got all my points in teleport, 5 points in arc lash, and pretty much after that you can do whatever you want. Unstable currents. This is the core of my build. As far as Paragon goes, the Paragons I have, they're pretty much up to you. You can customize this however you want. But I happen to have Life as Barrier, Conjuration cooldown. It's not really, that one's not really as important. The Crackling Lance board. I have the Burning Instinct board, but that's really for the attack speed node. I don't actually care about this keystone. And then I have Frigid Fate, which gives you more lucky chance whenever you do cold damage to a vulnerable character. Lightning Sword probably was... it was probably not the build to play early on, because it's so dependent on high lucky hit and high crit chance. And the APM required is just so high compared to other sorceress builds like Cold and Fire that it was just a huge mistake from start to finish. 21 glyphs. I've got 421 glyphs. Territorials 1 away. I did invest a little bit into Enchanter, Conjure, and Charged, but I don't think those are... I eventually stopped putting points into those. But yeah, Exploit, that's pretty important. Destruction's pretty important. These are probably the 2 most important ones. Vulnerability damage and core crit chance damage. Control's nice. Depth is nice. Depth is for Meteor and Ball Lightning. And then Territorial, I should have put more points in this earlier. But yeah, this is not the best build. I'll talk about that a little bit. But as far as D4 goes, D4, I would say a lot of the core issues with Diablo 4 really stem from whether or not the game really wants to be an MMO or an ARPG. Now, I mean, they're both in the RPG subgenre. So it's really not that big a deal if you're an RPG, whether you want to be either one, right? A lot of the core concepts are the same. It's a role-playing game. You kill mob, you get the loot. You get the loot, you kill another mob. But if you have to call out the gameplay loop as being something that's not interesting or not robust or not really, not really innovative, then I think you've missed the forest for the trees. A good game kind of hides the fact that it has a very simple, fundamental core gameplay loop with it just simply being fun. If people are calling out the fact that it's kill mob, get loot, kill loot, get mob, and that's repetitive, then you haven't made a very fun game. D4 doesn't really accomplish that, especially in the later levels. But as far as it being an MMO or an ARPG, well, why does it matter? There's plenty of MMOs and ARPGs that are like each other. Lost Ark is more like an MMO, but there's a lot of people who play ARPGs that really like playing Lost Ark. Well, there's a lot of overlap, but there's also some mechanics that just don't go together very well. So that's one of the big negatives of Diablo 4. it feels like an MMO more than it feels like an ARPG. It feels more like Diablo 3. It feels more like World of Warcraft. It doesn't feel like Diablo 2. It doesn't feel like a dungeon crawler. And a lot of that can come down to dungeon repetition. The dungeons are very repetitive. You run the same ones over and over. Now, normally that wouldn't be a problem if the game were more fun, but come on out, so it's pretty. A lot of the dungeons are either kill everything, rescue the dudes, or pick up the anime from the anime carriers. It's kind of mildly unpleasant to put it that way. But in furtherance of this feels like an MMO. There's also level scaling. ARPGs don't have that. ARPGs don't have level scaling. You beat something, you beat it, right? You're not dying in a level 50 zone with a level 60 character that's equipped with level 60 gear. It's not happening. With an MMO, well, you might, but that's because your stats are equalized to being that level. Either you're being brought up to the mobs, or the mobs are being brought down to you. And that's okay, because in MMO, it's not just about trying to outgear the mobs. So, what is this? Is this game an ARPG or is it an MMO? Well, I'm not really sure, and I'm not sure the developers know either, right? Here's the power fantasy of an ARPG. An ARPG, you're very incompetent early. You don't have any of the tools that you want in order to do anything that you want. So you overcome it with creative positioning, creative skill usage. You combine skills that you might not use later in combination with skills that you do want to use to get past the content that you are not overgeared for. But after a certain point, you eventually get the gear, you get the tools, and then mobs might be stat checking you early on. In the end game, you're stat checking the mobs, right? Back to my previous example, a level 60 character is not going to die to a level 50 mob. If they're properly geared, it's not going to happen because you're going to stat check the mob. Mob can't do anything to you. Either you're going to have too much regen, you're going to have too many defenses, whatever. An MMO, in the first couple of levels, you might not be that competent, but you pretty much get into the feel of everything once you've got your controls set up, once you've got your hotkeys bound. You are confident pretty much all the way through. Yes, you get power. Yes, you get items, but they don't really make that big of a difference. You feel the same throughout the whole way, and you feel confident the whole time. That's where the fun comes from in MMO. By the time you get to the end game, it's less about creativity and more about teaming up with other people whose kits do have what you want to fill out your weaknesses, and you have what they want, and you fill out their weaknesses. You team up, you fight together, you take down the raid boss. You and 39 other people in the 40-man raid. In ARPG, chances are, if there's two of you in a group, the game's broken. Nothing's happened. The mobs don't stand a chance. They didn't even stand a chance when it's just one of you. Now, there's two of you. It's done. Right? Another thing that separates ARPGs from MMOs is that ARPGs, the itemization is complex, robust, often a little too complicated for most people to really get. There's people who play ARPGs for 10,000 hours. They still can't wrap their heads around crafting because there's so many options. Diablo 2 was probably one of the first like that. It's like, oh, well, you have to take a look at blue items because they roll better stats than the yellow items. But the yellow items have 6 mods. But do the 6 mods matter if they all suck? Whereas you may only care about one thing on your weapon. The only thing you care about is 400 damage on your weapon, whereas a rare weapon can only roll up to 300. What's better? The extra mods or the fact that your weapon does an extra 25% damage? Right? These are the things you have to think about when you're playing an ARPG. With an MMO, you see green number, that's what you put on. You won't really care about the stats as much. But yeah, Diablo 4 doesn't know what it wants to be. It doesn't know if it wants to be an MMO or an ARPG. Some other thoughts about Diablo 4. Well, this goes back to Blizzard, right? So, do they know what they want out of the game? in terms of design. Maybe they think they know, but they actually don't. Do they really know that they want it to be an MMO or an ARPG? A lot of the dev team on Blizzard, they may have a lot of experience with World of Warcraft. Or World of Warcraft has a certain fan base. It has a certain style, and that's okay. But do a lot of them have any experience with an ARPG, with the robust levels of itemization that players of an ARPG really expect out of an ARPG, out of a game that is descended from the Diablo bloodline? A game that people expect a certain style game. Do they have the chops to be able to make a game like that? And Diablo 2's staff, Blizzard North, they left before Diablo 3 came out. Most of the team isn't even there anymore. They've gone on to make other games like Torchlight or Hellgate London or Stormgate Now, even though that's an RTS. But in terms of my experience with this game, I was here for the Diablo 4 beta. That was kind of fun. That was probably some of the most fun that I'd had with the game. I also played the Diablo 3 beta, and the most fun I had with Diablo 3 was during the Diablo 3 beta. This is something I called out the entire time while I was playing it. It was like, am I going to get bamboozled again by Diablo 4? Diablo 3, I had the most fun during the beta, and then it was just all downhill from there. Do I get suckered into buying Diablo 4, playing the beta, having fun, and then it's all downhill from there? That kind of scared me. I didn't want to spend the money on the game. Eventually I did, but I wouldn't say it's all down here. I do have... There are glimmers of hope for this game, even though I don't actually recommend it. I'm glad to say I didn't get bamboozled by the fact that Diablo 4 had parts of the game that were fun. Diablo 3 was all downhill. Diablo 4, you know, it's got peaks and troughs. So, at the very least, Diablo 4 kept me from spending more money on a different game because of how much time it actually took away from me. I originally got into the Diablo 4 beta. How? Well, I bought a KFC Double Down, and my review of Diablo 4 at the time was the same as the Double Down. It's not as bad as I expected. Maybe it came down to franchise. Maybe they tweaked some things about it, but the Double Down, it was not as bad as I expected. Last time I had a Double Down, it was soggy, the chicken it didn't taste right. But the Double Down I had this time, to get into the Diablo 4 beta, was crunchy, it was moist, bacon was both chewy and crunchy. It was alright. Although, I ate it less like a sandwich and more like chicken strips, but that's beside the point. The Double Down was better than I expected. Diablo 4 was better than I expected. It's better than it being Diablo 3, but unfortunately it's a bit of a low bar. But I want to talk about things that I liked about the game. The art direction, there was not a problem with Diablo 3 in this regard. The art direction was great. Diablo 4's art direction, also on point. There's a lot of things that look really nice about this game. This isn't even on ultra settings. This is on like lowest settings, and this game still looks pretty good. This game still looks competent. The plot works overall. I was satisfied by the plot, but I did have a few little nitpicks. The first thing I want to talk about is so spoilers, by the way. Spoilers. The two primary antagonists in the game, Inarius and Lilith, even though ultimately they wind up fighting at the end, as someone who's actually read through the lore of the books that were published after Diablo 2 came out before Diablo 3, the impression that I got was it felt like Inarius and Lilith, their personalities got switched along the way. It was really confusing to me that Inarius would willingly be on Sanctuary and that he would want to go back to heaven. It seemed more like he didn't care about humanity, he just wanted to go back to heaven. Even though, in the books, he cared at least a little bit more. He cared quite a bit more about humanity than as was portrayed in the game. Lilith, on the other hand, in the books, she didn't care about humanity at all. She wanted to use them like an army. In Diablo 4, she still kind of wants to use them like an army, but she also cares. She also cares a little bit, even though it's ultimately in furtherance to her goal of ending the Eternal War. She's the one that tries to tempt the main character into doing things for her. She's the one who cares. She has the cutscene with Rathma's corpse, and she goes, "Oh man, I can't believe you've done this." That's not something I expected out of Lilith. That's something I would have expected out of Inarius. So it seems like their personalities got swapped. That's just kind of odd to me. But a lot of the other things about Diablo 4 really worked. Lorath is the new Deckard Cain. He's a fine character. I think he's got a decent character arc. We might learn even more about him. I like Navrel, though I didn't like her at first, but I like that at the end of the story she's with Mephisto, and that she serves as a foil to several characters from Diablo 2. She serves as a foil to Tal Rasha. Tal Rasha, as you know, he's the big guy that Heraldric Mage has all the power. He beats Baal, and then he realizes that the only way that he can beat Baal is by fighting with him forever and putting the soul stone into his chest and having the rest of the Heraldric Mages seal him in the tomb where you fight Uriel. Navrel knows that she can't fight Mephisto like that. She knows. So the only thing she can do is run. She also serves as a contrast to the Kahagan from Diablo 2's Sankei Core. Here's a guy who has religious power, religious influence, but he was the one who got corrupted the fastest by Mephisto. Eventually, he becomes Mephisto's body. Navrel also knows she has no power. She cannot fight Mephisto. So, again, she runs. She has a better time resisting Mephisto's influence, to the point where she even tells the main characters, "Hey, shouldn't we be trying to kill Mephisto instead of Lilith with the Soul Stone? We can contain him, not her." So she's the one who has the big galaxy brain idea. Hey, we should be fighting Mephisto. We should be worried about Lilith. And of course, the main characters are still fighting amongst each other. It's like, hey guys, you guys know that you're being influenced by the primeval of hatred, right? Why do you guys hate each other so much right now? You're usually so smart. And then at last, of course, she serves as a foil to Leah from Diablo 3. Diablo 3, Diablo 4. Both of the two girls, they've got magical powers. Leah can't control hers. Navrel, she's not powerful enough for it to go out of control, so she learns from other people. Ultimately, Leah's mentor betrays her for Navrel. Lorath keeps her fine. Even though Navrel's mom ultimately starts working for Lilith, she doesn't actually betray her so much as hope that they would never come into conflict again. Leah and Adria was the mastermind. Vinard, she pretty much just forgets about Navrel as soon as she starts talking to Lilith. She's only there because she wants knowledge. She's not trying to obtain power. She's not trying to concoct a plot. And Lorath, in the case for Navrel, he teaches her a little bit, but he's not particularly good at it. He spends most of the game drunk. And they wind up taking different paths. The other thing, so Diablo 4 is great compared to Diablo 3. It's great compared to Diablo 3. Diablo 3 had a lot of plot issues. It had a liar who was bad at lying. It had a general who was bad at commanding. It was all over the place, right? And the worst thing about Diablo 3 was that you spent all of Act 1 trying to recover Diablo 1 because Blizzard made the assumption that no one had actually understood the plot of Diablo 1 because nobody played it. So they had to spend all of Act 1 replaying and retelling the story of Diablo 1, which was a big waste of time, because they could assume that people played Diablo 2, but if you played Diablo 2, you did understand the plot of Diablo 1 because it was in the manual. Or there were videos. There were more videos at the time back then, too. But they dropped the ball. They wasted time. And Diablo 3's plot was predictable from the onset, even if you didn't read the books. So Diablo 3 suffered from having Diablo 1 callbacks. In a similar vein, Diablo 4 also had problems with constantly referring to Diablo 2 as a bit of a nostalgia bait, but that's because Diablo 3 was like, oh, hey, you guys haven't played Diablo 1, why don't you learn about Diablo 1? Diablo 4 is like, hey, you guys hated Diablo 3, but do you remember Diablo 2? You guys love Diablo 2, here's Diablo 2, here's Andario, here's Duriel. Like, okay, but even though it's hard to avoid callbacks in a game that actually has lore and a world and something crafted around it, it was a little too heavy-handed. It was a little too much nostalgia bait for my liking. I didn't need to fight Andariel. I didn't need to fight Duriel. You would have wound up seeing the Diablo 2 references anyway, even without the attention being called to Andariel being something I love. And being an integral part of one of the characters' journeys. But I did like that, even though they tried their hardest not to mention Diablo 3. I did like that you could actually go back to the Act 2 town from Diablo 3. You could go back to the Overlook Pass. Even though there was no one there, you still could see Chaldeum in the same angle. And also, you could, in Edgewater? All the way in the bottom right, there's a town. You can meet the sidekick from Diablo 3. That's really nice. It's good to know that he was probably the best character in Diablo 3. And I'm glad that we see him again in Diablo 4, even if he doesn't talk about the Nephilim at all. So, in that regard, Diablo 4, the plot worked. The plot worked overall. Some minor complaints, but it's alright. It's alright. This is probably the best part about Diablo 4, which is both good and bad. We already know that there are going to be expansions for Diablo 4. They've already planned 2. I hope that the first one, we don't actually fight Mephisto first. I actually want that to simmer a little bit. I want that to be the question going forward, heading and finishing Diablo, the first expansion. The first expansion should be, where the hell is Tyrael? Why isn't Heaven doing anything about this? I want to know what happened to Inarius first. He should be rezzing in the Silver Spire. But there's also some lore implications that there's something gone awry, even though angels still are being resurrected in the Spire, based on some of like the side compendium lore that was released right before Diablo 4 came out. Angels are still being birthed out of the Crystal Arch. Where's Inarius? Where's Tyrael? Tyrael, we know, should be fine, and ultimately, where's the Nephilim? Early on in Act 7, Lilith offers the same moral choice to the Nephilim as she does to the main character. Or rather, as the Nephilim receive. Well, I mean, Lilith didn't offer it to the Nephilim. The Nephilim had to make the choice on their own. It's like, do you be good or do you be evil? You get to choose. She offers the same ethical dilemma to the Diablo 4 character as the Diablo 3 main character, the choice that they had to make when they were fighting alongside Tyrael. Do you be good or do you be evil? You have a choice. And the Diablo 4 character is like, fuck you, I'm petty. You die. I don't care about good and evil. You need to fucking die. Whereas the Diablo 3 character is like, well, I guess I had to be good because it's very clear that Diablo is evil and he's about to win. I had to stop him from winning. Diablo 4 main character is like, I don't know if I'm a hero. I can't figure it out. I'm just some dude. It's like, it's okay. It's okay if you're just a dude. The Diablo 3 main character got raised up pretty quickly. As soon as halfway through Act 1, it's like, oh my god, you're the Nephilim. You have to make the moral decisions. Diablo 4 character is like, I'm being forced to make these moral decisions. Oh, the Diablo 3 character is like, oh, I get to choose to make these moral decisions because I have moral authority. Diablo 4 character is like, well, I'm being forced into making these decisions because I have no choice. Thanks a lot, Lilith. But also, screw you. I'm petty. You need to die. Those flowers did not taste delicious. Okay? So the first expansion, I hope we actually go to heaven. I would rather see that. I don't think it's time for us to really find out what happened with Mephisto and Navrel. Even at the end of the game, is like Lorath is like, "Yo, do you have a? Why are we chasing after Navrel? She told us not to. Do you even know where she's going to go? You have a lead. What are you going to do if you find her? It's fucking Mephisto." You kind of hope that. I think he has half a mind that you just don't want to find her. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Right? And of course, the last thing I really need to say, in comparison, going from D3 to D4, is I don't need to see another Prime Evil having a nice ass. Here's the other part to Navrel being a foil to Leah. When Diablo took over Leah's body, he inherited the female form. His feet are high heels. I don't need to... I already saw one Diablo ass. I don't need to see Mephisto having a nice ass either. Let's... I actually don't want him to take over Navrel's body. I want them to go in a different direction. We've already seen the stick a soulstone into someone else's body part in Diablo 4. We've already seen it in Diablo 1. The main character did it. In Diablo 2, we had to deal with somebody who put a soulstone into their body. Diablo 3, we saw what happens when you have a soulstone and an angel carrying it around. Bad shit happens. I already know what's going to happen with a soulstone if you put it inside of someone. Bad shit happens. We saw it in Act 2. I don't need to see it again in an expansion. Let's do something different. We already tried destroying it. We already tried locking it away. We tried destroying it at Hellforge in Diablo 2. We tried locking it away at the end of Diablo 3 and Reaper of Souls. And, you know, let's try to do something different here. Moving on. Another good thing about this game, it definitely has good world design. I liked how it looks. Unfortunately, the world is just a little bit too big for my liking. And this ultimately comes down to the horse. They balance the game around the fact that it has a horse. If the game were if the world were 30% smaller and we just didn't have a horse, I don't think that the walking would be quite nearly as bad. But we have a lot of walking to do. Again, this goes back to the point, are you an ARPG or are you an MMO? An MMO, you want to travel the world. You are walking. Yeah, you might have auto run or whatever, but ultimately you're walking around or you're flying around somewhere. In an ARPG, you want to remove that as much as possible. 50% move speed, 100% move speed, you're still slow. 250% move speed, now we're getting somewhere. We want to skip all the walking as much as we can, even though we're actually walking the whole time. We want to skip that as much as possible. The MMO, you're still walking. You're still walking, but it should be a treat to see. And if it's not a treat to see, the game should be able to automate it for you, right? That's not the case in Diablo 4. It's got the worst of both worlds. You're walking around, but there's nothing to see, and you can't really make yourself any faster unless you're a sorceress. The sorceress might have the most mobility, but whatever. You get on your horse, and then what do? You're 25% faster? Ooh, I already have 150% move speed, so I made myself, what, 16% faster? Wow. Real big. Yeah. Lots going on there. Woo! You want a hot take? I think the horse is the worst part of the game. It is. It's not even the fact that the game plays inconsistently unfun. It's not even that the plot, they switched Inarius and Lilith, their personalities. It's not even the threat of seeing Mephisto's finely crafted ass. The worst part of the game is the horse. You can't kick the horse in town. You can't make it go faster. The speed up is on a cooldown. The horse itself is on a cooldown, which, okay. Come on, man. The horse is the worst part of the game. And there are barricades that prevent you from moving throughout the world. You would think that the thing that makes you faster, that gives your horse power, the skill, your evade skill, you would think that would be able to blow past barricades, and yet that's not an option in the game. They should probably change that. If they want to keep how the horse works currently, they should probably change that. As it stands right now, the horse is the worst part of the game. I hate it. They balance around the horse. I understand that they want to sell microtransactions because you can dress up the horse, but I'm not having it. Back to walking. Nightmare dungeons. You used to have to walk to them everywhere. This is post-patch, so I did most of my Nightmare dungeon leveling before the patch. I made it to 98 before they patched it, and then I finished up 98 to 100. There's no map overlay. There's no auto walking, so this game has an MMO sensibility to walking around everywhere. But there's no auto walking. There's no map overlay, so you can't know where you're going unless you press your hotkey for map. And you still don't know where you're going half the time because the map doesn't work half the time. If you try to put down a pin, it doesn't work half the time. Unbelievable. I don't get it. Like, I understand game designers have an intent for the game, but some of these you gotta compromise on. Like, no map overlay, I don't know where I'm going. Come on, man. Even World of Warcraft had a map overlay. Come on. But as someone who hit 100 doing literally Nightmare dungeons from 60 to 100, I can tell you, the buff to Nightmare dungeons was absolutely needed. I no longer have to save up 10 or 12 of the same dungeon, walk to the dungeon, and then do all of those dungeons all at once in order to make experience efficient. In fact, it would have been more efficient just to do the dungeons without having done them as a Nightmare version. I know that there's exploits. You can reset the dungeon by putting in a Nightmare sigil, leaving, and then doing something else every time you enter that second instance. The Nightmare dungeon resets everything on the map. So you could theoretically just run blind burrows over and over and over. And that's like the best experience in the game if you're solo. I didn't do that. I tried to play the game legitimately. And I wish I had. I wish I had taken advantage of that exploit that's still almost there. It's still mostly there. It was a slog. It was an absolute slog. I don't ever want to have to do it again. It's nice. They pretty much cut the top with the Nightmare dungeon buffs. It takes about a third of the time. If you do nothing but Nightmare dungeons, it takes about the third of the time to get a level or a Paragon point, which is nice. But it came too late for me. I was already 98. Going on about Nightmare dungeons, which seems to be the primary form of endgame in this game. Okay, they got buffed. You level up faster, but they didn't make Nightmare dungeons any more fun. More experience, good. But the gameplay's still not better. So if we want to take a look at a Nightmare dungeon, right? We'll take a look at it. Nightmare dungeons are all pretty much the same in that they follow this format of you get one positive buff and then there are 4 debuffs. You just kind of have to find the debuffs that you can do, right? Like, for example, right here, Monster Life, I don't do these because it makes mobs harder to kill. It makes it slower, right? Um, Lightning Storm, this for some reason one-shots me, so I don't do these. I grind these into dust right away. This is a map that I would do Witch Water. Blood Blister, I don't care about Blood Blister. Monsters doing poison damage, well, resist don't do anything anyway. Monster Burning Resist, I don't do burning damage unironically. Resistance Breakers, well, resistances don't do anything, so this is actually a map that I would run. This is not a map that I would. Lightning Storm will kill me. Right. Drifting Shade, wouldn't do this. Drifting Shade's too annoying. So, here's a couple of points of feedback that I would have for Nightmare Dungeons. The first mod, the ones that really do direct damage to you, like Lightning Storm, Stormbane's Wrath, a lot of these are one-shots. And they're not particularly fun to do. I know there's lots of people that really don't have a problem with them because they can just sustain through them. If you want to maximize the amount of damage you do, if you're trying to push a Nightmare Dungeon that's 10 levels above you, if you're trying to do the hardest content in the game, these impact you too much to make that a reasonable grind. They impact you too much to actually make it fun. So, even though they buffed Nightmare Dungeon experience, they didn't buff how fun Nightmare Dungeons actually are. And the buff that you might get, the 1 damage buff, this may not affect you. Lightning damage, cool. I do extra lightning damage. That's great because I already do lightning damage. Gold Find is pretty cool. That's MF. Increased critical strike. I do crits. Physical damage? I don't do physical damage. So unless this is flat physical damage added onto all of my lightning skills, I don't do any of this. Right? It doesn't affect me. Another problem with Nightmare Dungeons, they produce on-death effects. You literally had to take the worst part of Path of Exile and double down on it in this game. This is probably the worst part of Diablo 2's legacy. Diablo 2 had freaking undead Stygian dolls. The ones that explode when you kill them. And are probably the most dangerous mob in the game. For some reason, people thought that was a really good idea. The people who made Path of Exile thought that was a really good idea. Diablo 4 people said, oh, well, Path of Exile does it. That means we should be doing it too. Yeah, no. On-death effects are haram. They should be forbidden. It's in the Holy Book. It's not okay. Because an on-death effect is pretty admission that you don't know how to kill your players any other way. Because it doesn't take skill to die to an on-death effect. It doesn't matter if you kill them slow. It doesn't matter if you kill them fast. It doesn't matter if you kill them far. It doesn't matter if you kill them close. It doesn't matter if you kill them with fizz damage or if you kill them with magic damage. They explode, and then you take damage. So, in order to play the game properly, you are punished for playing the game properly. That's what an on-death effect is. Those things should be haram. You know what? Okay. Dungeons, again, they're not more fun after the buff, even though you get more experience. Part of that could be due to the lack of creativity, because they're almost all fetch quests or kill all the mobs, which you would be doing anyway, so there's no real bonus incentive for you to do what you were supposed to be doing anyway. I have a few friends who suggested, well, why don't Nightmare Dungeons just have different objectives? And that could work, actually. If you just change up the objectives, that could go away toward Nightmare Dungeons being at least more fun, if not more profitable. That way you can break up the monotony. And I'm not just saying, oh, you switch one dungeon condition to another. I mean, you come up with a new dungeon completion condition. Right now, it's just do the thing until you run into the door, do what the door says, and then go through the door. Which, if your game is fun, then no one's ever going to call attention to it. Other than that, leveling solo is a regrettable experience. I wish I'd never done it. I wish I had friends to play this game with early on. we would have been able to do the split dungeon farming, like with Blind Burrows or Champion's Demise. And now there's no need to do that because I'm already 100 and I'm not touching this game again. There's a real lack of creativity when it comes to this game. It's very repetitive. Not in a good way. World quests are kind of pointless. Side quests are definitely pointless. They don't add anything into the lore. They don't add anything to the experience. They don't I don't care. What? I'll be right back. All right, we'll do this. We'll do part 2 later. But yeah, the world sucks. All right, I'll be right back. What? Do I even bother editing that out? No. It's fine. It's fine. I don't need to edit that out. World quests suck. You just wail on the mob for like 3 minutes. Whatever. I don't care. Side quests in this game kinda suck. Thank you. Yeah, I hit 100. Side quests in this game kinda suck. They're all extremely forgettable and they have no rewards. Why even bother having side quests in this game? It's like, oh, you can break up the monotony, guys. No, they're just as bad. No, they're just as bad as dungeons. The tree is cool. I like the tree. The tree gives you rewards at least. It's nice. It's nice to revisit the open world again. The open world's actually not that bad. It's a little big, but it's not that bad overall. They are a little low, even though they got buffed. Sellers, permanent skip after you do renown grind. I have no reason to ever touch them ever again. Why are sellers even in the game? There's no point. Caches that drop from world bosses, they used to be level 80 for some reason. Now they're not. That's nice that they got buffed. But one of the things that's really nice about this game is Helltides. Helltides are probably the best thing in the game. They have you revisit the open world, which is kind of cool. But you also get to re-experience the world while killing mobs, right? Again, the gameplay loop of the game is kill mob, get loot. Helltides are very good at that. You definitely get to kill mobs, and you definitely get loot. Helltides are the best content in the game. If you get a world event during a Helltide, that's probably the best thing that could possibly happen to you, because you get like 4 times the experience that you normally would. And you fight with other people, so you're getting even more experience on top of that. I would almost wonder if, like, the regular open world compared to Helltides, I feel like the open world spawn rates are a little too high, almost. The mobs respawn very quickly, but the density is low, so there's a lot of not fighting in between mobs, they might want to consider changing that. Raise the mob density when hell tides aren't up, but then lower the spawn rate, because there have been times where I've killed a mob during a non-hell tide, tried to port back, gotten attacked, not been able to port back, have to deal with killing the mob. That's kind of unfun. I'd rather just kill everything in the area, but then I actually have a grace period to be able to port back. This is during non-hell tide. During hell tide, I should never be able to port back. Like, mobs should constantly be swarming me during hell tide. Speaking of mobs during the hell tide, you probably saw in another video, I got one-shot by the trees. I like that trees one-shot you. Not balanced for hardcore, but gave me quite the laugh. But there's a lot of mobs in this game that some of their mechanics are just they're supremely messed up. Bloated creepers can heal themselves, which normally wouldn't be a problem if they didn't explode on death. They could trigger their own explosion. They trigger other bloated creeper explosions, and if you get a nightmare enchanted bloated creeper, they can proc their own heal from their nightmare copies. You could legitimately get a bloated creeper that just literally never dies if it's fast enough. Playing as melee against electric goat shamans is death, because the beam can hit you more than once. Daze, anything that prevents you from using skills is not cool. Keep that to PvP. Plague Bearer is indistinguishable from Poison Enchanted. You can't tell if there's a difference. There's a mild green glow, and that's it. Lightning Enchanted, the little rotating balls. Yeah, if you teleport into the middle of the ball, you will get hit like 8 times a second instead of once. Cold Goat Shamans, they can all screen you. Yeah, that needs to go. That needs to be stopped. And then mobs run from you a lot in this game. Almost too much. In Diablo 2, Fallens only run from you if they get set on fire. Now they almost kind of don't. Fallens don't run away from you, but everything else does. Come on, guys. That's not even lore friendly. Come on. I gave you so many points for the lore so far, and this is how you treat me? You're gonna make Fallens the exact opposite of how they normally do? Come on. Come on. Skill visibility is pretty low. Again, on death effects are not okay. And spiders, they keep you rooted forever. Even though blind burrows might be the best experience in the game, if you don't have multiple sunbreakers for blind burrows, you are not touching blind burrows with a 10-foot pole. And there's also another mob that you can encounter on the coasts called Drowned Bells. They have a really weird sound reverb every time you hit them, and it actually hurts my ears. Please fix that. Please, please, please fix that. It actually hurts. And I have not found a sound effects option that gets rid of it. That shit, it hurts. Please stop. So yeah, there's a lot of mobs in this game that actually this might go back to why people are having problems with the overall fun and feel of the game, because there's a lot of things that are in this game in terms of mob design that are just straight up unfun. Mobs can turn themselves unstoppable. Like, if I CC them too much, well, if I CC them too much, they break the CC and then they run away. Like, okay, what am I supposed to do about that? I can only, like, I have a power budget. Either I can build for CC and damage while I CC, or I can build for generic damage, which is worse. But if the mob's CC breaks itself, I get nothing. I get neither one, and they run away. Unstoppable needs to go. Unstoppable needs to go. That shouldn't exist in this game whatsoever. If you have to nerf CC, fine, do it. If you have to nerf vulnerability, fine, do it. But unstoppable needs to go. It cannot be in the game. And then, as far as bosses go, they're probably the easiest things in the dungeon. I am less scared of a boss than I am of white mobs. I am less scared of the final boss at the end of the dungeon than I am of a pack of elite bloated creepers. I am less scared of a boss than vampires because I know that vampires will just run away. I am less scared of a boss than I am of the goat shaman because the goat shaman can actually one-shot me. I am less scared of a boss than I am of the tree because I know that the tree can one-shot me just by slapping me across the face. But overall, this game, it has a base of a game that could actually go somewhere. I actually think it can actually go somewhere. This game is almost salvageable. Am I convinced that Blizzard is going to be able to do it? I actually don't know. My confidence in Blizzard has been shot since at least 2010. I saw StarCraft 2 and I was like, nope. This isn't it. Diablo 3, nope, this isn't it. But this game can potentially grow into something that I would consider worth going back to. It's just, are they willing to complete their vision of what this game should be? Can they actually pin down what they want this game to be? Is this game an MMO? Is this game a live service? Or is this an ARPG that happens to be a live service? Because it's very hard for it to be both. There are mutually incompatible design decisions for having something that is an MMO and an ARPG. A wide open world that is mostly discovered through walking is not compatible with an ARPG. An ARPG wants to skip as much of that as possible, usually by building move speed. You can't cap move speed in a game, because there is a functional cap. You can only get move speed on your amulet and your boots, and some skill perks. It can't be done. Some things are just incompatible. Can Blizzard figure out what they want this game to be? Can they figure out where this game wants to go, where this game should go? As of right now, I'm skipping Season 1. And I feel like a lot of people should be skipping Season 1. Because Season 1, they are going to rush this out. They want this by the end of July. And I know that they shouldn't, but I know that they will. Because Path of Exile season is at the end of July. And Blizzard thinks that they will compete. This game is underbaked. It is not going to compete. It will not compete. The people who will play a Season 1 of Diablo 4 are the same people that are going to play a season of Path of Exile. The people who aren't going to play Path of Exile, they've never participated in something like this before. They're the ones who are complaining on Twitter, well, why would I play Season 1? I already have this character. Well, why would I spend time investing in this character? It's like, seasons are what makes an ARPG replayable. Again, there's usually some kind of seasonal perk. The pull of an ARPG is that you get to redo a character, you get to re-experience the world. It's usually a different character with a different set of tools, but ultimately it's the same goal. Eventually I'm going to stat check the shit out of these mobs. It's just with a different character. And the people who aren't going to play PoE, but would be interested in playing season 1, those are the people who have never experienced that before, are probably turned off by that assertion. And then they're just not going to play. Diablo 4 Season 1 is going to go very poorly if they don't push it back, or if they don't implement some major changes. And the changes in this game are coming at a glacial pace. They are coming in slow. Cold and slow. Gems being material instead of taking up an inventory space is not coming till Season 2. Resistances being useless and not being changed before Season 1 is also not coming until Season 2. So they're really fast about giving out the nerfs, but they don't want to change anything about buffs or quality of life upgrades or narrowing down a vision for what this game could be. They can't do that in time for Season 1. This game is done. So, this game has a lot of problems. This game has a lot of problems. A couple of changes. Again, Unstoppable needs to go. On Death Effects needs to go. It's good that they already addressed Nightmare Dungeons. That's really good. But another one of the things they could do, they had added a World Tier 5 at 85. That way our itemization doesn't suck. Past 80. Yeah, I don't know. There's too many things that this game needs to do. I can't see it without some major changes. I really can't. So that's my Diablo 4. That's my thoughts on Diablo 4. I even skipped all the notes that I had on individual character classes. All the notes that I had for that. All the notes that I had on itemization, because at this rate, I'm not even sure if I can touch that in a video. I can't go on for an hour about those because I'm not even sure if any of that feedback would be helpful, because the rest of the game is so rotten to the core that trying to mess with character skills and itemization might lead Blizzard to wasting time on the wrong things. I couldn't even right now. This is not a game to buy at full price. There's not enough content for it, either as an MMO or an ARPG. As an ARPG, I would definitely say that this game has failed. If you are a fan of ARPGs, if you're a fan of Diablo 2, if you are a fan of Path of Exile or Torchlight or Grim Dawn or even Lost Ark, don't bother. Because this game doesn't live up to the legacy established by Diablo 2. This game is only barely better than Diablo 3. Which is good, but it's a low bar.